Okay. I'm not sure if people can see me on the screen or not. There's usually a little toggle button, and I can't, but I can't see it right now. So hopefully everyone can see me. And so I think some people are maybe still trickling in, but I would like to say to everyone, welcome. Welcome to Northern Businesses Intelligence Discover Geotab Vitality webinar. Today we are going to be diving into Geotab Vitality with Michael Owens. Geotab Vitality is a data-based driver rewards program, and we're really excited to have this product available for you all today. So a few housekeeping rules while people are coming in. And if you could first kindly turn off your phones and camera, or turn off your cameras and microphones. You can feel free to use the Q&A section of the webinar platform. We will be taking questions throughout through the Q&A, and they will be addressed at the end of the webinar. So please, as you're going along, if you have ideas of things you want to ask Mike and myself, please please put them in the Q&A, and we will get to them. So for anyone joining us today who is not familiar with NBI and who we are, because we did put this out within the social world. A little bit about us first. We are one of Geotab's top resellers within Canada and the US. We have been a dedicated Geotab reseller for the past 20 plus years, and we come to market with a very high touch white glove approach. All of our clients get assigned a dedicated CSM when they come on board with us, and our CSM team, along with our CSS team, our order management team, we have a number of people. More than half of our staff are bilingual, so we offer service in both English and French. And we feel that we make fleet management simpler, more effective, and a lot more human across the markets that we service. So joining us today, we have Michael Owens. Michael is the head of revenue generation at Geotab Vitality, where Michael works with Geotab partners and customers to empower drivers, build better habits, stay motivated, and feel more valued every day. Mike has spent the past 10 years in the fleet management industry, building partner ecosystems and focusing on how to turn telematics data into impact for customers and improve visibility, compliance, and operational efficiency. So without any further ado, I'll turn things over to Mike.
Thank you very much. Very excited to be with you all today. I'm going to share my screen and very excited, as mentioned. Just kind of hopping right in, what we're here to kind of talk about today is how we can support the enhancing fleet safety, efficiency, and driver engagement. By way of a quick overview of the agenda, I thought it would be good to kind of start with a little bit of a discussion on the current state of drivers and driver behavior, and then share some viewpoints on finding and implementing a solution to address and engage your drivers. And then finally, we'll talk about Geotab Vitality to round things out. So starting off, I think it's important to kind of establish a baseline for the conversation, a little bit about why we're here today and some of the challenges and issues that Geotab Vitality and NBI are supporting customers with. And so firstly, if we look at the current state of drivers and driver behavior, the team helped me kind of pull together some stats here, but in the US alone, there's an estimated driver shortage of about 60 to 80,000 commercial drivers. And then when we look at the turnover rates for long distance truckload carriers, it's about 90%, sometimes a little bit higher, which what means is some fleets are having to replace nearly their entire driver workforce each year. Some other things we'll get into a little bit around the Geotab vitality and how it can support is in idling. And so this was one study that was conducted that shows that by reducing idling by 1 hour per day can save about $1,500 per vehicle annually. And so, in the current context, with fuel prices being what they are, always looking at different options that we can support to drive cost savings. Um, for those familiar with Geotab Vitality, and for those who are not, you soon will be, but we talk a lot about driver gamification and rewards. And so what the data shows us is that for fleets that use telematics for driver gamification rewards, show about a 10% higher driver retention rate. And so one of the things that we'll talk about when it relates to Geotab Vitality is bringing mindfulness and support for safe drivings in the effort to reduce collision risk. And the reason that we're doing this is because driver distraction is contributing up to about 71% of accidents. Going a little bit deeper on each one of these, wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the driver human capital crisis that are currently impacting the industry. And so, there's lots to discuss on this topic. For the purposes of today's discussion, just kind of pulled out a few things here down below. First of all, as mentioned on the previous screen, talking about the labor shortage. And so across trucking and many other fleets, there is a labor shortage, which is often described as conversion and retention crisis. But one of the things that we're noticing is the issue is of a shortage of qualified, safe, and motivated drivers who want to stay in the industry. Another thing that we're looking at is the aging out of the workforce. So this is something kind of a cutting across industries, but is specifically impactful within the fleet and the trucking industries. And so what this is showing is that roughly a decade older than other sectors, exacerbating the need for replacements. And so then the question then becomes, how do we attract more drivers to this industry? And then finally, we kind of talk a little bit about the retention crisis. And so we have heard from a lot of customers that drivers leave due to work-life imbalance or lack of respect, or not just, and it's not always about pay. And so one of the things that we want to kind of discuss and work with customers on is how can we support retention strategies as they have to go beyond wages to ensure the long-term stability. Related to that, obviously, is if we take a double click here, is the cost of driver turnover. And so these are estimates on aggregate. Would love to, over time, learn about the challenges at your each individual fleet and company. But, just trying to look at some of the examples here is there's a lot of fees associated and a lot of time and cost associated with driver turnover. And not to mention the opportunity costs as well as from underutilized or non-performing assets. And the other thing is from a training perspective, like new drivers tend to have higher accident rates. And so they have less familiarity with the routes, the customer relationship. So the so what here is it is an impact overall that causes throughout the business from driver turnover. And so what is, the eye-popping kind of some of the numbers is the estimated average cost of losing a single driver is around $12,000. And so when we go back to some of those previous stats and we see the influence of those, one of the things that becomes incredibly important, now and moving forward, and I'm sure I don't need to tell this group, is retention and motivation and engagement of those drivers. For those in the T&L, transportation logistics industry, just massive costs associated with lost freight revenue per week due to underutilized or shortages on the driver side. And then one of the biggest things from a survey that we found was 94% of trucking companies report difficulty recruiting and retaining drivers. And so we'll go over a little bit on how Geotab Vitality supports these efforts. Again, just for some additional industry context here is likely familiar to those who feel the pain of this, but rising insurance premiums and the rise of nuclear verdicts, something seriously impacting our industry today. And it's, forcing fleets to shift from a reactive accident management and a collision risk perspective to proactive safety solutions. And so, for those who may not be familiar with the term nuclear verdict, this is an incidence where there is an accident and a jury awards an amount exceeding 10 million, often in personal injury or wrongful death lawsuits. So again, talking a lot about the cost associated with this. And so when we'll get into a little bit later, you'll see that the common thread throughout all of this is what can we do from a proactive nature to reduce that collision risk while also supporting from a driver recruitment and retention and engagement perspective. A couple of stats here at the bottom, and again, I promise not here to kind of scare anyone. I'm sure most people on the call are very familiar with these, but really just to kind of set up the why, which is, there is an increase in the number of nuclear verdicts. And so in 2024, there was 135 cases with a total of about 31 billion. And so the average of these, settlements are continuing to increase and are having a drastic impact on the fleets who are bearing the brunt of this. Similarly, on the insurance side, so insurance premiums saw a spike of almost 9% in early 2025. A lot of this, again, caused by a number of factors, but one of which is the collision and an accident history of the drivers within the fleet. Um, and then from a verdicts perspective, they've increased 50% over 10 years, which is again leading to soaring claim expenses. So again, not to be doom and gloom, just kind of setting the stage of why we're having these conversations today and some of the things that Geotab Vitality and Northern Business Intelligence can do to kind of support you, the customer. Um, I wanted to include this one again for those who may not be as familiar with the concept of behavior change, which we'll get into in a little bit, is a key underpinning of the Geotab Vitality solution. But what's really interesting to us is around, we look a lot at behavior change and the driver psychology, because that is a big input into the success of some of these programs. And so without going into too much detail here, one of the things I just wanted to kind of highlight a couple things that we have found and some elements that are impacting the results. So the first is what we call like the reactance theory. And so in short, what this means is that when people experience a threat to behaviors, they actually exhibit a restricted behavior or go back towards and causes friction from the source of the threat. So in this world, we talk a lot about friction between driver and fleet manager or safety manager. And the result of that friction is because the communication and potentially sometimes the misalignment of goals are not appropriately communicating that. And so what that can kind of relate to is when drivers are told they must act a certain way. So remember stick versus carrot for the rest of the conversation. The initial instinct is to restore freedom by doing the exact opposite. And so, again, this is hopefully it doesn't resonate with the folks on this call to a certain extent, but is this something that we have seen quite often? Another thing when we think about the gamification and the engagement perspective is this concept of stretch goals. So we have these a lot in professional lives, but also can kind of extend to the driver as well. And so ambitious goals beyond normal levels can actually cause performance volatility, goal abandonment, and lower adjusted performance. And so the reason we kind of bring this up is a lot of the times when we look at a fleet and a group of drivers, there's a lot of diversity within experience, performance, and so applying one program to a diverse set of drivers is not always having the desired impact. And so what occurs a lot of the times, especially for some, in this case, the lower performing drivers or our riskiest drivers, the gap starts to feel insurmountable. They look up at those who are, achieving their safety goals, being recognized, and it actually can have the adverse effect where they become disengaged because it seems like an insurmountable task. Another thing we kind of talk about is the better than an average effect. So, we this was a big part in the assessment of creating Geotab Vitality, and so the tendency for selves perceive as superior. So, in our world in Geotab Vitality, we did an assessment on asking drivers, how do you feel that you are as a relative? Like, where would you place yourselves? And of course, everyone said that they were on, for doing a box diagram, up and to the right. Everyone identifies as a great driver, as I did, to be fair, when we went through the survey. However, what the data shows us is that's not actually the case. And so sometimes that gap can unintentionally cause cognitive errors, right? Because when drivers believe they're already above average, one, they may lead to errors, but two, they don't engage with standard or generic coaching programs because they feel like they're above it. But as we know, safe driving is not a one and done. It is a lifelong journey. And so this is one of the things that we'll talk about throughout today is the continuous engagement of drivers to make sure that we're constantly improving and focus on that safety journey. And then the last one, is what we call the Dunning-Kruger effect. And so individuals' lower ability often lack the awareness to see their own errors, and training benefits careful drivers, but sometimes fails to improve the less careful. Again, this speaks to how, when we're putting Geotab Vitality together, the big focus on the behavioral aspect, and the key takeaway being that one size training does not fit all, even within an individual fleet. Um, so enough of the psychology, back to kind of the hard numbers. So the price tag of bad habits. So fuel, very in the news these days, but it is typically the fleet's second largest expense, and it's one of the areas where most susceptible to unmanaged waste due to poor driving habits. And so we'll talk about what this means in the Geotab Vitality context in a little bit. But first, if we look at aggressive driving, speeding and rapid braking lowers fuel economy by 15 to 30%. And at highway speeds, that's at highway speeds. And in stop and go traffic, it can be anywhere from 10 to 40%. So, simple things around, you've probably heard this term a lot, around smooth driving, can have a serious impact on fuel economy. And then so there was a study done that said at about 5 miles per hour, over 50 miles per hour, is like paying additional 27 cents per gallon for gas. And as we kind of talk about it in this current environment, that can really add up. The other component is idling. So this is kind of one of the unseen costs, if you will, sometimes when it comes to fuel economy. And so the example that we have here is for those who have Class 8 vehicles within their fleet, a truck idling, at about 0.8 gallons an hour. And so that can waste up to 4,000 to 6,000 in fuel annually. Again, these are broad numbers, but the takeaway here is there's an opportunity to reduce some of the noise or the unneeded idling hours. And so that we will talk about that a little bit in how we approach that. And so I found this stat really interesting, is that 1 hour of idling equals about 25 to 30 miles of driving wear on internal engine parts. So all of these things together, you'll hear the Vitality team talk a lot about driving behavior. And so a lot of these things is we're trying to both educate and quantify what we mean by that, and support how we can bring that in to different customers. Compliance. So, we talked about safety, we talked about fuel. Compliance is another big one, especially for certain segments or certain fleets. Again, a lot of information here. I won't drain all of the statistics, but wanted to kind of highlight a couple things because we are, at Geotab and Northern Business Intelligence, management by measurement. So we have to have a number for all of these things to kind of validate. And if we look at the compliance context, in 2025, about 18% and vehicles and 6% of drivers were placed on out of service due to inspections. And so when we looked at the top driver out of service violation in North America, it was for HOS. And so accounting for 32% of all out of service violations. Um, and we bring this up is because HOS is obviously compliance and mandate, but there is an administrative burden to it as well. And so all of this, there is the financial component, but there's also the opportunity cost from time as well. The other things they pulled some data as it relates to 2025 fines for non-compliance is, the average is around 1,500 per day for failing to complete required DVIR, and then fines for up to $12,000 for falsifying those, and then about 15,000 for failing to repair reported defects. And so, again, not meant to kind of doom and gloom here when we kind of talk about these different metrics. It's just to highlight that the opportunity that we have to address some of these things that are impacting fleets today with technology. And so, which kind of all brings us to the concept of in-house rewards programs. So, I obviously speak to a lot of customers, and so one of the things is the concept of rewards programs. And so, they come in many different shapes and sizes, obviously to fit the needs and of the different companies and the fleets that they operate. But just wanted to kind of share some of the insights that we've seen as we were looking to build out Geotab Vitality. And so when we think of a program, what it really entails is tracking the performance, validating results, and distributing things manually. This can create a heavy administrative burden and can, where these folks who are administrating these, their time could be spent on more kind of mission critical tasks. And so the example that we give within the fleet world is we collect a lot of really, really great data, but then it is on the fleet manager, the safety manager, whoever the champion is at the program to action something with this. And so that takes up a lot of time, right? We have to look at the data. We identify those we want to reward, identify those who need to have coaching conversations. There's just a lot of admin as it relates to procuring the rewards, submitting an expense report, providing visibility into the tracking, and then doing that month over month. And so, based on the conversations we had, it's about 40% of fleet managers spend the majority of their time doing administrative tasks, and a lot of those are reactive. So, again, when we think about in-house reward programs, one of the things that we communicate with NBI to customers is a focus on using data, but also the proactive nature of it, which again is good for the driver and good for the fleet administrator or whoever the champion is at the individual company. So that was, again, I just wanted to kind of set the stage a little bit on the why we're here today. And then wanted to go into a little bit about like how our view, at least from finding and implementing a solution to engage and support your drivers. Obviously, being Geotab, very much a believer in what we call like the two-in-one, performance insights and driver rewards. And so what this means is using the data collected from Geotab, we have this automation and this proactive nature to reward solutions that combines real-time telematics with behavioral analytics and meaningful incentives. Again, this is just the view on the evolution of these types of programs. And what it does is it creates a complete view of driver performance because we're leveraging the data that you all are already collecting via Geotab and providing insights and turn it into impact. And so if we have, fleet managers on the call today, that like driver performance and safety and efficiency compliance, there's things around behaviors improving that you need to require coaching. We kind of talk about rewarding the top, coaching the bottom, and then the middle is kind of a bit of a purgatory. And then so there is also, you have the safety component, you have the compliance component, and then we talked a little bit about fuel. And so it's difficult to kind of manage all of these things under one roof. And using telematics data is a great way to kind of simplify that and bubble up those insights and actions to the surface. And so one of the things as well is like, make sure that there is a measurable ROI for your safety and engagement program. Like, the measurement by management is not just a slogan. It's a really great strategy to make sure that you get the return on investment for different types of programs. If you, for those of you who follow the Geotab Vitality's president and CEO, he wrote a recent viewpoint on this concept of the safety ceiling. And so we're at a point now where we have more data than ever from telematics, AI risk scores, cameras, driver scorecards, and which can, in some cases, cause a new challenge, which is the safety ceiling. And so when we look at traditional coaching programs, what this can do in some cases is create a repetitive cycle. So the fleet manager or the safety manager, as we kind of discussed before, identifies a group of high-risk drivers and then provides coaching, but again, only to a subset of those high-risk drivers. The good news is they improve because they went through this coaching and they listened to whoever they were speaking with. But over time, they revert back to old habits because we haven't actually created sustained behavior change. We just addressed a symptom. And then what happens is behind them is you have another group in theory of drivers that need to be coached. And so what it kind of creates is this consistent need for addressing it, again, in a reactive approach. And so what this can result in is fleet managers overwhelmed by coaching duties and safety performance remains trapped in this cycle. And so our view, in working with MBI is shifting engagement to drivers through an automated and a proactive approach. So drivers, there's a personalized aspect to it, and there's communication of targets and progress. And then this is where, we have different levers to pull in terms of leaderboarding, nudges, gamification, and rewards, which motivates and kind of locks in that new behavior. And then the dynamic progression-based approach of programs using the gamification, it aids in motivating drivers to continuously self-improve because even the quote unquote best drivers or the least risky, it is not a set it and forget it. This is something, that year over year, month over month, week over week needs to be top of mind to ensure that we are at the driver level reducing that collision risk aspect, having a positive improvement on the idling and the fuel side, and make sure that we are up to date from a compliance perspective. And so when we look at this gamification and this proactive approach, what results is an upward trend in safety and others with less administrative burden on the fleet managers, again, allowing them to go back to more mission critical activities. This is another thing that we've kind of shared with clients. Again, I won't go through in great detail, but it's a little bit about how to kind of go about it. And one of these things is just like anything else, is you need to come up with a plan. And getting buy-in and support and communicating the why will really help with the success of this program. And so again, from an example, is being transparent, both with management, but also the drivers, is why we want to introduce a program like this. It is not punitive. It is incorporating them into the solution and being part of the solution on how we're doing this together. It's not being done to them. They are an active participant. And again, this is done through communication, through Q&A sessions, sharing on what looks like. And so, from a NBI and a vitality perspective, we can obviously support these conversations. The other thing, it seems obvious, but explain how it works, right? Like we identify what we're trying to achieve, and then define metrics that will be used against this. Because again, our experience is when we speak with drivers, it's all about being above board, being clear in communication, being transparent on what we're trying to achieve, and collect feedback to ensure that we have alignment in that driver. Because from the drivers, or in the seat, as they say, like, they have a unique perspective that those of us who aren't in the cab, as it were, don't have. So it's really having that two-way conversation. And then find champions. So a lot of the times, we find that you lead by example, and so there's a commitment to the program. And it's the framing from it is for the driver's benefit, both in terms of their own personal safety and helping them achieve that goal, but in certain kind of, when we think about rewards programs or driver programs, there is an acknowledgement perspective, but also, sometimes there is a rewards component as well. And then obviously, when we think about how to achieve and how to deploy something like this, we talked earlier about the cost of fuel and rising costs of a lot of things. It's super important, again, don't need to tell this group, is to demonstrate the return on investment. Adding cost, or being perceived as adding cost, is sometimes a difficult conversation. But when we can demonstrate that the cost is an investment to achieve a return, that allows, for the guards to be dropped a little bit, and allows for a conversation. And so what it also does is it shows that, like, it makes the results tangible. And so we're driving towards something. So again, wanted to kind of share this just based off experience on how companies and how fleets are able to establish a program like this and get buy-in from management as well as drivers. So with all of that, we kind of talked a little bit about the setup. I shared some thoughts around the how from a program perspective, and now would love to talk to you a little bit about Geotab Vitality. So for those who are not familiar, Geotab Vitality is a science-backed, all-in-one behavior change platform that rewards better driving. So kind of exactly what we just spent, the last half hour talking about. And so our customers thus far, we've been able to show that fleets can improve their driver behavior in as little as 6 weeks by improving safety, fuel spend, compliance, and, as we started this discussion, around driver retention. How we do that is hopefully everyone on the call is very familiar with Geotab. And so Geotab Vitality, what it does is it combines the power of leading edge telematics and behavioral science. So what that means in practical terms is Geotab's understanding of commercial fleets and the nuances between fleets of one another, which has been informed with 25 years of experience and almost 6 million vehicles worldwide, which is about 9 million drivers around the globe, because in most cases, there's more drivers than there are vehicles. And so what Geotab brings to the table in the context of Geotab Vitality is the collision risk center and the predictive collision risk metric. And so what this does is it allows for standardized benchmarking by vehicle type, vocation, and region. And so we'll talk a little bit about that when we get into the actual application. But this is super important from a commercial lens, as understanding the operations, the vehicle, the drivers. And then we bring together Vitality, which has the proven track record from the behavior change perspective. And so Vitality, as part of the Geotab Vitality experience, has 25 years of experience in helping customers make safer and healthier choices every day around the globe. And so Vitality is the gamification aspect in the behavioral change, all these different levers that we pull to support the Geotab Vitality application comes from the Vitality side of the house. So I'll go, I'm going to attempt a live demo here, which is always a high wire act at the end of this session, but I just wanted to kind of give you a foundational understanding of what we mean when we talk about the application. So this is, a version of what the screen looks like on the right-hand side. And then the way that it works within the safety module is we're looking for safer drivers and to lower risk. That is the name of game for Geotab Vitality. Obviously, there is a lot of benefits to it, but our North Star, if you will, is to help customers and drivers and fleets reduce their collision risk. And so the way that we do that is inspiring and rewarding world-class driving. So drivers are given a personalized weekly safety goal, and safe driving performance is measured daily. And so going back to that conversation on the last slide about standardized risk performance, this is really the power of Geotab Vitality because drivers are compared apples to apples using Geotab's vehicle, driving style, and area risk benchmarking. And so trip level feedback is provided to the drivers. Again, it's this continuous circle of performance and feedback and visibility, which drives engagement with the application. And so at the end of the week, if the goal is achieved, it unlocks a reward, which can be redeemed immediately in the application, or drivers can accumulate a balance. And I'll go into that when I pull up the live demo. And so why we do this is because small behavioral nudges, gamification, and the active rewarding the behaviors that we're looking for that from our drivers lock in these behaviors and form lasting habits. So you'll hear a lot about sustained behavior change when we talk about Geotab Vitality, and it is something that we truly believe in, and that's what we unlock with the application. Here's a quick overview of the walkthrough. Again, this will come through clearer when we go through the demo, but we have the personalized safety goal. There's the on-demand driver feedback when we look at the different trips. We track safe driving progress throughout the week. And once the drivers achieve the goals, they earn rewards, and then they're able to redeem those rewards, which then locks in that behavior change. A very important part of Geotab Vitality is the rewards component. And so again, when I pull up my app, I'll go into a little bit more detail. But one of the things that we like to communicate is how the local rewards matter. And so this is just an example of some of the countries for where Geotab Vitality is live, obviously focusing in North America. But you'll see here is that the team has spent a lot of time working with rewards partners that are regional and meaningful and impactful to drivers. And the reason is all of this drives engagement. So there is some carryover across, but I was actually on a call this morning with some colleagues in Europe, and I gave the example that, as a good Canadian, Tim Hortons means a lot to us. It does not mean a lot to our friends in the UK or France. So again, that's part of one of the things that we really try and focus on from a Vitality perspective is making sure that we're meeting the drivers where they are and allowing them rewards to redeem rewards at places that are impactful. I wanted to share kind of a quick overview of one of our recent customers to just give you a sense of Geotab Vitality in action. And so, we'll talk about this a little bit at the end, but this customer went through a pilot. Then they converted to a paid customer, which was fantastic. And the reason is because the results that they saw throughout the pilot process. And so throughout the pilot, they saw a 41% improvement in safe driving behavior. And so those familiar with the Collision Risk Center and the PCR metric, it's really driven off of what we have here below in terms of these safe driving habits around acceleration, braking, cornering, and speeding events. And they saw a decrease in all of those events when we compared the driver behavior pre-pilot and those same drivers during the pilot. And so demonstrating to you as part of one of the big things that we look to achieve with the pilot results is taking all of this and making it real with your data and your drivers to show the impact that it's having. And so for this specific customer, yeah, just within the pilot period, they had an 8% reduction in collision risk, which is just a massive number in a short period of time. And they had a 3% improvement in fuel efficiency when I know what some of you may thinking 3% not that high. Well, at the time, this customer, we didn't even have the idling component built into the application yet. This is how we are quantifying that smooth driving metric that I talked about earlier, is bringing mindfulness to the driver and their driving style has a tangible impact on both safety and fuel. And then the last piece here around driver retention, this has just been fantastic to see. This client in particular, they shared their own data as it relates to churn rate and the cost that we kind of went over at the beginning of this in terms of driver turnover. And what they extrapolated out using their own data was the reduction in churn rate. So for this customer, again, these results will vary, and that's why we encourage the pilots. They're projected out 12 months, and so they are on track. This is a live update. They are about 4 months into their deployment of about 4.5 times return on investment, and that's not net of the cost of the program. So again, these will vary customer by customer, but this is shameless plug on why we work with NBI to bring pilots to you. I wanted to share this. So this is a very exciting update on our end. From a product perspective, we've talked a lot about safety, but in the beginning, I talked a lot around fuel and idling and compliance. And the reason is we're evolving Geotab Vitality next month. So we're very excited that next month will be expanding the driver platform from safety to now also include sustainability and compliance. And so the goal here is one behavioral engine, one driver experience, and one manageable ROI. And I'll get into how we're doing that here in the next couple of slides. But as I went through in the safety section, it is all about personalized safety goals and closing the ring because we're able to pull that information in from Geotab. We're now introducing streak-based behavioral reinforcement. And the reason is we want to focus on sustained performance and consistency because this is the engagement that when we take a long-term view drives measurable improvement. So quickly here from an idling perspective, we'll have more details as we officially launch next week or next month, I should say. Wanted to give this group a sneak preview for joining the webinar here today. Is how it's going to work is drivers are rewarded for staying below daily idling limits. And so they will receive a personal idling target, just like in the safety, and performance is tracked daily with a 30-day rolling average, and days under that target build a streak. And so what that results in is fewer idling minutes, lower fuel spend, and better habits. And so when we think about it, it's fuel savings driven by motivation, not mandate. And then from a compliance perspective, we're looking at both DVIR and HOS. And so similar to the idling component, we are looking at the streak base and using the calendar view. And so drivers unlock badges and streaks by completing the DVIR, so pre and post vehicle checks, and verifying HOS logs. And so the way that it'll actually work is it'll have a calendar view as shown here, and it shows DVR completion and HOS verification. And drivers will be rewarded for their longest streak within a month. And so right in the application, drivers will be able to complete DVIRs from the calendar and verify the HOS log. So when we looked at all those numbers around compliance and the fines associated with this, that's what we're trying to achieve here is fewer violations, fewer fines, and less admin follow-up. And again, we want to get to a place where compliance is driven by engagement, not by escalation. And so as I call up my application here, I just want to kind of end on this, which, for drivers, this is the focus area. It manifests into something simple and engaging, which is drive well, get rewarded. So wish me luck here. I'm going to attempt a live demo. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And this is the Geotab Vitality application. So this is my application. As you can see, there's my name at the top. And so this is what your drivers will see. And so they will see their name at the top, and across from it is what we call the digital wallet. This is the current amount of rewards earned by the driver. And one of the things we talk about is that we are putting the onus on the driver to make a change. So we want to provide them the autonomy to redeem rewards when and where they want to. If I scroll down here, this is what we call the drive status. And so this is part of the dynamic progression-based perspective of Geotab Vitality is drivers start in what we call the bronze, and then throughout closing their rings and progression, they go from silver status to gold and then ultimately platinum. And the reason that this is important really comes down to two reasons. From the driver perspective, as they progress throughout the statuses, they're able to earn more each month. So if I click on this icon here, it tells me what my current status is. And then it will be, so I am in silver status, which means down at the bottom, which I'll go over in a moment. Each week that I close my goal, I can earn 6 credits towards my digital wallet. And for clarification, there is a one-to-one US or Canadian dollar to these reward points. And from the drive status perspective, from the fleet manager, the safety manager, whoever is the champion of the program, we have the data that shows that as drivers and fleets progress from bronze, silver, and gold status, and then ultimately platinum, they can significantly decrease their Geotab predictive collision risk, which is obviously what we're striving towards. If we look at the weekly drive goal section of the application, this is where we talked about in the previous, the personalized nature of the safety goal. So my goal this week is 475 points, and it shows I'm about halfway there. And so, as mentioned, drivers have the ability to earn up to 100 points each day through safe driving to close this ring. And so we want to make the app really simple and intuitive for drivers. So we've included different pop-ups like this that explain how the program works, especially in early days. And so as we continue to scroll down, also from a visual, it will tell us how many points and how many days we have left to achieve our weekly goal. And obviously, as we close that ring, that 6 that you would see grayed out in the bottom will be added to the 15 at the top, and I will have a new rewards balance of 21. If I scroll down to the bottom here, we've also added some driver analytics, again, in the idea of communication and visibility to the driver in terms of what they're seeing, but also to make the app very intuitive. Additionally, down here, it gives them insights into their application. And so as mentioned on the previous screen, the 4 safety measurements for safe driving is acceleration, braking, cornering, and speeding. And so what you'll notice here is from the speeding perspective, the speeding and braking are more heavily weighted in terms of points. And that is by design because we have the data that shows us that harsh braking events and harsh speeding events are more highly correlated to collision risk. And so we're incenting drivers to be focused on those as well. If I switch to the trip screen, you'll see today I have a no drive day. But if we go back, this is to give the drivers a view of the type of information that they will see. Again, we're pulling all of this information from my Geotab, so it is a simplified version for the driver of what the fleet manager or the safety manager sees. And so, for example, if we click into a trip, then we can see if we get an update here, that on this trip there was one speeding event. And again, it just provides context to the driver on the impact. And as well, we want to celebrate when they have a good driver. So in this example, there was a perfect trip. And so again, no safety violations during that trip. There's also this points tab, which again gives drivers a sense of how they are progressing week over week. And so, for example, if we look at the last week where I had some interesting driving data, it will tell the driver day by day when and where they earned the points and how much. And again, we want to celebrate if they had a perfect day. So they went through the entire day with no safety events. And then the last thing here is, again, because we want to drive constant engagement, we have what we call no drive day points. And so what that is it is a rolling average of your daily drive points for the past 30 days. And so the reason we want to do this is we know that drivers drive different shifts. Some drive 3 times a week, 5, etc. And so we want to manage that. And then the last thing I want to show you is the rewards mall. And so this is a big piece for the drivers because this is the reward, as it were, for changing their behavior. So Canadian, this is a Canadian app. For the American drivers and customers, you'll have the American version. But essentially what it shows you is the driver sees how many available credits that they have to redeem, and it gives you a preview of some of the partners that they can redeem, and you can shop by different category. And so how it works is if you go into the coffee session as an example, it tells me the available credits. And if I wanted to redeem for Tim Hortons voucher, I would just click on this, click confirm to say, yes, I would like to use my credits to purchase a $5 voucher. And then what it will do is I can actually go into the retail location and scan my phone like you would any kind of digital payment. For other options, for example, such as Amazon or Walmart, if there's an online purchase, then it comes with a code that you can put in at time of checkout, which will deduct it from your balance. So the takeaway here is that, again, we are asking the drivers to make a change. And so we want them to be a part of how they do that. And so they can redeem the rewards that they earn each week, or they can accumulate a balance and redeem at a later date. And then from the fleet manager or the safety manager, whoever the champion is, it just is in a massive time saver from that perspective. So I know we're running short on time. I just wanted to give everyone a quick preview of the application. And so Alpha, I'll send it back over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. I was monitoring the chat and the Q&A sections, and I noticed that we didn't have any questions, so you must have covered things very well. If people do have questions, I would ask you to put them in those sections now. If we don't get to them before the end of the webinar, we will follow up with answers to all of those questions. So jumping back into my deck here, so time for questions was now. We'll move on to next steps. In the next steps, of course, this webinar, there will be a summary come out to you via email along with the recording. So if you wanted to share this with other people who are relevant within your company or friends that you know that could benefit from this program, please feel free to share. And we will also be sharing a short survey link at the end. It's only about 5 questions. It'll take 30 seconds. We would appreciate your feedback if you have it. Um, and if you would like to schedule a demo or a pilot of this program, if you are an existing client, I would encourage you to contact your CSM, and they can schedule a live demo and or pilot that is unique to you. And if you are not currently a client, or if you just want to reach out not to your CSM but to us generally, you can feel free to contact me at this address, abrag@northernbi.com. And finally, oh,
Have
I noticed that, yeah, I noticed we do have a question, I believe. Perhaps, just let me get into, as far as idling, if a driver is not associated with the truck, is there any way to track it?
Yeah, so really good question. So part of the deployment is we do use driver assignment so that data can flow to the driver. So if it's not being currently used today, then Geotab Vitality and Northern BI will work with you to get that set up.
Perfect. Um, so if there are any other questions, feel free. We are wrapping, however, um, so in the interest of wrapping up and giving people back a little bit of time, unless there's another question that pops up, would like to thank everyone for joining us today. Of course, there would be no point if we didn't have everyone coming in and learning. So thank you to our valued customers and our prospective clients that are on the call today. I would also like to thank Michael Owens. Fantastic job. And if you do have questions for Michael, go forward, or for us, like I say, just send them along. But thank you, Michael, for sharing today, and also like to thank our Geotab partners for their support with great products like this, and also with all the materials and everything required to help us deliver a great presentation. So if that's it, then I would like to say thank you, and we'll wrap and give everyone back a couple of minutes in their day.